Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Prismata Cup 2 stream. After a grueling 64-man Swiss bracket, we have our final 12 players who will fight for their part of the $2,000 prize pool. My name is Frodan, and today I'll be joined by Reynad on the air to bring you top-level analysis, as well as read out some fun donations. Andre, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good. Going good. A little early for me, but it should be fun.
Yeah, it's past noon, so it's just in the twilight hours for gamers, that's for sure. Well, hopefully you can kind of shake off the exhaustion because I know you've been playing a lot of tournaments, and kind of you get to be the one in the bird's eye view, the 10,000-foot view over your fellow competitors today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Today's Prismata Cup 2 is going to be a lot different than what people have come to normally expect from standard Hearthstone. Care to explain why, Andre?
Yeah, it's kind of using a unique format this time where no deck can be played for more than 2 wins. So you won't see any 3-0 sweeps with one deck that somebody's unprepared for. And on the flip side of that, you also won't see a deck being eliminated just after one loss. So a player can, if I'm understanding it right, can lose with the deck twice before it's eliminated.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, so the idea is, just like you said, there isn't going to be one dominant deck in a series. Whether you bring Hunter or Miracle Rogue or Priest or whatever it is, you can't just 3-0 with it. You have a maximum of 2 plays. So either you play it once in the beginning of the series or the end of the series, it doesn't matter. Win or lose, you just get a maximum of 2 plays with the deck. So it gives a little more consistency to how often you're able to play a deck. So if you just get bad draws one game, and right now you've probably been a victim to this a few times, you have an opportunity to save it for later. And then as the series progresses, you have this interesting dynamic where class choices become narrowed down because you've already played a class twice. So there's only a couple of more you can choose from. This plays into some information and some nice little mind games or rock, paper, scissors, if you will, of class choices. So it's kind of cool. It's worked out so far in the earlier Swiss rounds. And then as the games develop and the series progresses, we're going to best of 7, where you have a 3-play system, where the same thing, except you only can play it 3 times. So that's a quick breakdown of the formats. Why don't we introduce a little bit of the players and who we can expect to see today, Ray?
Sorry, one more time. I'm a little bit. The
All right,
players.
yeah. Why don't we introduce the players and who we can expect to see here?
Uh, Got to pull it up. So I believe it's Freshco versus Caldi for the first match here. We're starting off at quarterfinals, correct? This is Sunday. We're still Swiss. Oh yeah, we're at top 12. I think it's been narrowed down to so far.
Yes. This is the
Cool.
final round of Swiss, and then what happens is after this round, we'll get our quarterfinalists. Now, one person will be seeded directly to the semis between Colento and Silent Storm. That'll be after this match between Freshka and Kaldi, because those 2 players that we see on the stream are finishing at the last round. It's the featured game, and then afterwards we'll have Colento versus Silent Storm, who have yet to lose a game, and they get seeded directly into top 4.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see these 2 players go at it. I haven't seen Freshco or Caldi too much in tournaments. Freshco I've seen on ladder quite often. Uh, we'll well, let's just get into it and see how the games go. I guess I'm interested to see how this format affects deck choices, deck building. It's very different. I don't think it's ever been used before. So
Yeah, it's first time that I've seen it for sure myself, and I've casted pretty much everything under the sun lately, so it's definitely new to the scene. One thing we do want to remind people is that an interesting spin that Prismata has taken, a different approach, if you will. They're going to reveal every single deck list to every competitor. So Freshka knows Kaldi's list completely in and out, and Kaldi knows Freshka's list in and out. Now, I believe that this has been tried before in Tavern Takeover and a couple of other tournaments, and some players gave positive feedback. And now Prismatic Cup is even trying this as a new aspect of competition for Hearthstone as well. If you know what your opponents can do, you have extreme high-level play where you're really out trying to think your opponent a few steps ahead. We don't know if this is actually going to be the case in this series, if these players are even paying attention per se. Some players just say, I don't really care what my opponent's playing, I'm just going to stick to my game plan. But you want to put that information out there for the viewers in case they see some weird plays here.
it's a lot of big changes all at once. I know that the revealing deck lists format has been used in Magic in East Coast tournaments a lot of times for top 8. For Swiss, the decks aren't available, but for top 8, everyone's decks will be passed around, so everyone will have an idea of what their opponent's playing. And it really, I'm not like, a huge fan of it. The Midwest tournaments didn't really use that for Magic at least,
Right.
because it kind of punishes you a little bit for making some cool deck choices to catch people off guard. But on the other side of that, I see why it happens because, after 8 rounds of tournament play, a lot of people are in the same team together. They'll tell their teammates what they played against. So it's kind of uneven. Like some players will know about other people's deck lists just from word of mouth later on in the tournament, and some players won't. So this does kind of balance
Mm-hmm.
that out. So I understand why it's being used.
What's cool is that tournament organizers are still willing to experiment rather than taking just the cookie cutter last hero standing, best of five, maybe a ban or two. And I like that Prismatic guys are trying to kind of deviate a little bit from the standard. So shout out to Magic Amy and Alex for trying to innovate a little bit here. I think the first match is prepared, like you mentioned, Mulligan screen. So let's hop into it and see what these guys have prepared. Freshka is a pretty unique deck builder, by the way. You've seen Caldi in tournaments like DreamHack, but the last time we've seen Freshka was, in fact, the first edition of this cup in Prismata 1, where he made a pretty good run with his Swiss round as well. So Freshka's back here and trying to make a decent run, and these games are live. They're not pre-recorded, so keep in mind that the stream does have a delay on it, guys.
So it looks like both players are starting off with a Flame Whip and a Dream, trying to skillfully earn wins by clicking on Soulfire and aiming it at the opponent's face around turn 7 or 8. I've been seeing mostly Handlock lately, which I'm excited to see some Zoo, honestly, and really surprised that it's a mirror match. Maybe in this kind of format, a deck like Zoo that's, maybe 55% against the field overall is a good opener because, you don't really have any awful matchups, but you do have some good ones. You're
Yeah, well,
starting to see a lot of like big game hunters and black knights in tournaments with bans because once you're banning hunter out, you're starting to see a lot of slow decks. So you're seeing cards like Faceless Manipulator, big game hunter try to go over the top. And here we see faster decks. I don't think Prismata is incorporating a ban system, right?
Not as far as I recall. So Zoo versus Zoo it is. Now, a lot of times, the player who does start off with the coin is in a huge favor because you can get out those early game drops much sooner. But there are ways to seize it back if you can get things like Soulfire, and a lot of times it does kind of snowball to the point where the person who does get at the more board control early on just seizes the tempo and never lets it go. So this is going to be a little tricky for Freshka, unless he's able to pull it back with some pretty nice draws.
He's opting to play the Chow here rather than save the coin and go for a Voidwalker Chow next turn. It's going to allow Freshka to trade off here, gain some of that life back off of Flame Imp. And life is actually a very important resource in this matchup because early game board control is important, but only because it gives you a life advantage. Once you're ahead by 10 or 15 life points in a Zoom mirror, in the mid game, it means that you're the one that's going to be attacking face while your opponent's attacking creatures to catch up. And that'll just give you more life taps when it comes down to the later turns and makes cards like Doomguard just end the game on the spot.
Yeah, and that will definitely be a factor. But in the meantime, this is kind of like what you mentioned, an opportunity to just kind of compound the board from which Caldi has the lead from early on. And that's where Soulfire really does come into play. Now, it's interesting that Void Terror is being here in Freshka's list. I thought that card has been rotated out of Zoo decks, I guess with the Nerubian Egg in tandem, but it seems like it's still pretty strong here, and he's opting to go for it. Do you still like Void Terror in Zoo decks, honestly?
I mean, it's not terrible. It's hard to go wrong when you're building Zoo, honestly. I don't think that any card choice in the deck is going to be extremely like terrible or great in most cases. Void Terror is good sometimes. Sometimes it's not so good. I mean, I've never actually had it just rot in my hand, so it's definitely a fine card. I prefer to just fill out the curve with more consistent cards, though. The more interesting thing to me here is that I believe Freshka is playing Undertaker without Zombie Chow or Leper Gnome, so he has no one-mana Death Rattle creature.
Dang, back-to-back snipes here from the Knife Juggler
Yep,
on the 1/1s.
2-mana Ragnaros.
2-mana Ragnaros, yeah. Gosh.
Gotta feel good if you're Freshka. Or, I mean, Caldi. Okay, so Power Overwhelming. It is the only copy. This is what I mean here. It's like not exciting, but it's pretty solid. Zoo doesn't tend to play Iron Becal or Big Game Hunter, so a giant Void Terror is pretty effective. The problem is that Void Caller, or the Void Walker, though. It's gonna eat a 9 damage attack if Freshka doesn't manage to draw a Soulfire or a Doomguard. So those are the cards he definitely wants to see next turn.
All right, well, there's ways to stack damage too. Keeping the Knife Juggler alive is so clutch, especially if he has another one as well. You can really start pushing out the damage. And like you mentioned, this 1/3 absorbing it is effectively like a 1/9. This is a similar case where you see like Miracle Rogue sometimes gets a huge Van Cleef, but then the small taunts end up making the Van Cleef pretty ineffective for a couple turns, and then Zoo can still push out board control and damage.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's a good point though. Van Cleef's a good parallel to this because Van Cleef, when it's in your opening hand, makes it almost impossible to lose his Miracle. Because Zoo, yes, it can soak up damage for a couple turns with taunts, but eventually it just runs out of creatures, and that Van Cleef, if it connects once, you're just dead to Leroy. In this case, Zoo doesn't actually have as much burst as Miracle, so taking damage to the face isn't as scary for Caldi, but nevertheless, Zoo doesn't really have a good answer for just a large early game creature most of the time. So now that I said that, he drew his one Iron Beak out,
Ooh.
which is a cool card choice.
Yeah, it's the Void Terror player that has an Iron Beak, though, not Kaldi. In fact, he has
Yeah.
other interesting inclusions like the Echoing Ooze and just other ways to fill up the board immediately, which seems to be the priority nowadays. Now, these double juggles can be really clutch if it hits a couple of these important targets, whether sniping the Knife Juggler or being able to kill off the Iron Beak Owl, perhaps even both.
He really wanted to draw a 2-drop this turn or a 1-drop just to get the extra double juggle, so that Shattered Sun Cleric is not what he wants to see. Let's see if, it's not what he... Okay, this could have been worse. And now you're in this position where, what do you do with the Knife Juggler? You have to go face. You can't trade because Iron Beak Owl is going to trade with the 3/2 Juggler anyway. Yeah. Alright, so Freshka here is just going to go face. I mean, this Void Terror, he was pretty far behind in the early game. I don't know if there's any other card that could have put him in the game like this card has. He's going
Yeah,
in.
put
Oh
up
my
the
god,
most
this is
dominant
such a huge
creature.
life total lead.
Oh
That's
my
insane.
goodness. 11 damage, and he's still yet to tap into some of the other more powerful creatures, like you mentioned, the Doomguard, which can seal it. And he still has yet to hit Soulfires, and he's top decking, so he's not going to have any inefficiencies of discard.
And Caldi needed to see a Defender of Argus like this turn. That's what he wanted.
Mm.
Alright,
Oh
so
man. Juggle's out of orders here, so that way he couldn't get the trades, but now he finally kills it off.
okay. So he's behind on life. Whoa, I would have gone face there. I think it's an attack. Freshco would have made either way.
And Knife Juggler does have this sense of taunt on it because of how much damage it puts out, so you can leverage that and take do 3 more damage to the face often.
Absolutely. Nerubian Egg is not exactly what you want to see. I would have liked to see him put it next to the 2/1 damage golem because that's what you would rather Defender of Argus.
Wow.
But we'll see
Nice.
if. Oh wow, yeah, that Soulfire draw is fantastic. Like Nerubian Egg is not what you want to see on turn 6 because then you have to draw an enabler to make it do anything. This is looking very good for Caldi at the moment. Harvest Golem is just the amount of damage it takes to remove it basically means that Harvest Golem is unkillable in the Zoo Mirror because most of the time it just makes more sense to attack face rather than commit 4 damage to a Harvest Golem in the mid game.
Well, it's starting to come down to the wire of Soulfire top decks. A Doomguard draw for Kaldi. Oh my goodness.
Is that card good?
I think it's excellent.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
Doomguard is pretty gross. I would attack the Doomguard into that, I think. And then just go face with the other. Oh, no, I guess he is pretty low. Okay, I see the thinking here. You want to attack both the golems into the Nerubian Egg and then run Doomguard into the spider. Because, Caldi here doesn't want to die to a Doomguard from Freshka off the top.
Or anything, really. Another Soulfire, he'd only be short 3 damage because he has 6 on board.
Was Freshka the one that double Soulfired, or was Caldi?
No, both of them only drew 1 Soulfire, so the other ones are still alive, as far as we're concerned.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was one each.
Yeah. It was back-to-back Soulfires. Freshka
Playing very
draws.
quickly, so yeah, the perspective's switching a lot back and forth.
Nah, that's just what Zoo is.
I like the trade there. Oh, Flame Imp, that is the worst.
Yo, man, that is really tough.
Yeah, you have to life tap and draw Defender, I think. You can try to play passively and just run both creatures into Dwarf and then play a Nerubian, but you're gonna take 2 damage to see your next card either way, so you might as well pay the mana now to do it.
Oh
There
my
you go.
goodness. Defender of Argus, and he has the Rubian to make it relevant and active as well.
So now you trade both creatures into dwarf, play Nerubian afterwards, and then defender your 2 creatures, and then you have nothing on board that dies to his harvest golem. And all of a sudden you're in great shape this game. I don't love this. Wait, is this just strictly better? No, it's not. This leaves dwarf alive. And this is one way
Yeah.
to do it, I guess.
Freshka still is looking for a Soulfire to potentially end the game, but he doesn't get it. Now this is really awkward because his opponent can be on like another Doomguard draw, and he still has the ability to tap, where oftentimes that tap does make the difference.
Yep, just needs 4 damage here. Okay, he can life tap into any 2 damage buff, and he has lethal. Soulfire or Doomguard also still do it. There's no difference between being at 4 life or 2 life if you're Caldy here, so he's definitely going to life tap. That's game.
Ah, the 2 damage it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Because you can't get all the buffs. Oh, no, you can. You can. You dwarf between the left 2 creatures. Because it's kind of awkward sometimes to Defender and Wolf because you can't get
Yeah.
the full value out of both. But in this case, he can position them so he has lethal, I think.
Yeah, you should. Just between either of the 2 targets that isn't Flame Imp, and then, of course, just pair it up with the Direwolf Alpha, make sure it gets that +2. And that should be 9 damage if Kaldi's counting correctly. He's just going through the math once again in his head.
It's so rare that you see Zoo games that are close like this. Like, a lot of times, whoever gets the board lead by, like, turn 4 just snowballs and runs away with the game in these mirror matches. But it's a very cool scenario where Void Terror put Freshka into position to be able to win the game. And then the draws for Caldi were just a lot more effective off the top.
2 life to 0 life. That's pretty much as close as it gets. And keep in mind that Freshka still had the opportunity to end the game at any point if he was able to draw into his first Doomguard or Soulfire number 2. And that's just how the cookie crumbles in this scenario. Now, Zoo, its place in the metagame here, you have obviously people go to you as the consultant of Zoo at the moment. So you feel like it's pretty good given the fact that people are expecting handlock and whatnot. But with all these metagame and control decks coming out, they're a lot slower, including cards like Sludge Belcher. Don't you feel like it gives a little bit harder time for Zoo in terms of
It's been a long time since I've played
before, after
Zoo.
next?
You're absolutely right about that. Cards like Sludge Belcher just make it so much harder. Decks are so good at slowing the game down. The advantage that Zoo used to have is that Flame Imp and Voidwalker gave Warlock the ability to have this strong early game on turn 1 and 2 that a lot of other classes just didn't have. But with Naxxramas coming out, every class has access to Undertaker. So that, half the decks you play against, like Priest now, all of a sudden have an early game that's comparable to yours, and their late game and mid game is going to be much better. So for that reason, I tend to prefer Handlock to just kind of go over the top lately, as well as because it's favored against Zoo, if that ever happens to come up. Also, like Miracle Rogue, it's better in that matchup. The one advantage Zoo has is it's much better against Hunter. But, we're not seeing that. Not seeing that in this particular matchup, so yeah, Zoo is never a horrible choice, but it's rarely an exceptional one for a tournament.
All right, well, with that analysis well done, we should go into game number 2. Now, keep in mind, as you see on the screen, it strictly goes by the number of times played. We can still see Zoo versus Zoo if Freshka and Kaldi both choose to queue up, but it can be completely different. So it seems like Kaldi's going to stick on Zoo, and immediately a shift to Paladin for Freshka with Anixia in his deck. What is this?
That's ambitious. It's the neutral scenarios. This matchup really just depends on the Paladin's draw, honestly. Caldi is on the play, doesn't have coin, but he does have Flame Imp, so pretty good for him. Okay, here we go. Consecration, Double Belcher. It looks like a pretty slow draw. You don't have anything that costs 2 or 3, but these are all the cards you want in the mid game. If he can, he's probably going to be too far behind to not coin Consecration, but if he could curve Belcher into Belcher on turn 4 and 5, that would be so strong. That's not... Oh, that's fine, I guess. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, he's got the 2 Death Rattles to follow up on curve. And the Flame Imp still is a relevant 3-2 later on.
Whoa, there's no way he's gonna coin hero power, is there? He's probably just bluffing here that he has a 2-drop. Might as well, no reason to immediately pass the turn and give it away that you
Yeah.
don't.
What 2-drops are even that common anymore, though, in the Paladin, other than the Wild Pyromancer to contest it, which easily could get traded off, too, so.
Yeah, that
Speaking of
wouldn't be
which,
the worst for him. Maybe you could like turn one knife juggler or something like that. I don't know. I tend to play Doomsayer in my Paladin deck, but I guess that's not super common. Okay, Pyro, Coin, Holy Light. I mean, he's got effectively a couple different ways to consecrate here. These creatures are just super resilient against it, though. He wants True Silver Champion here. He needs True Silver Champion here, or Equality. Okay, so that's a
look
good
at
draw.
that. True Silver Champion gets the 2-for-1. If he can get it, because these death battles do end up becoming a big threat to the point where Defender of Argus gives it so much value because it's able to buff it, and even if you kill off the first body, there's going to be minions spawning after it.
Oh wow, this is not what Calder wants to see. All these minions, except for Void Caller, just died of consecration, so he has to make the decision, like, do I overextend into that card, or do I let this True Silver just kind of slow me down to the point where Freshka gets time to play more of his mid-game threat? I mean, given that Freshka coined the True Silver and he's going to have 4 mana next turn, I would likely life tap here, because there aren't many 4-drops the Paladin would want to play besides Consecration. Maybe the occasional Senjin. But he is just going to make the more aggressive play. Hope that Freshka doesn't have it, but he does. That's an interesting choice.
Quality combo. It's going to leave a
So-
few minions left.
I guess that's fine. You do this into Consecration. I mean, by doing that, you have no answer to Doomguard anymore, so it's a little sketchy, but Kali doesn't have it, so he's probably fine here. Oh, man.
Wow, and the Rubian Egg draw makes him resilient to cards like the Consecration, so the AoE clear, not even guaranteed.
He's going to have to run his face into the 4/4, and this game is looking very good for the Paladin at this point because of that Holy Light. You're going to take some damage this turn, drop pretty low, but then you play Sludge Belcher, and Zoo is mostly locked out of the game at that point.
Yeah, the Wall of Taunts just becomes really difficult to overpower as the Zoo player. And then after that, you're left trying to top deck to finish off the game when there's so many ways for them to bounce back. Not just Holy Light, but Guardian of Kings, and even when Tyrion, these kinds of cards provide such a longevity to the Paladin that is oftentimes it puts it out of range.
Yep. Go Belcher into Belcher. This card is so gross. Sludge Belcher is just one of the best neutral. It might just be. I don't know. I used to think it was Mad Scientist, but Flare really keeps that card in check. Sludge Belcher is just absurd. Like, in every deck. I played 6 of it in BlizzCon qualifiers in the 3 decks I submitted.
Sounds like the dream scenario if you could play 30 Belchers, maybe. Freshka just chooses not to drop one, by the way. Instead, opts to go for a combination to potentially answer the board while getting card draw, and opts to keep his Belcher in hand. Do you like this play? Do you feel like he can still survive in this scenario? Like, would you take this kind of risk, too?
Yeah, there's not much that can kill you. It would have to be like a Doomguard plus a Soulfire or Soulfire plus a Soulfire, and, either of those cards can interrupt the other from happening, so I suppose it makes sense, but it feels a little greedy to me. Like, you have so much late game you want to play anyway. I would just go Belcher, Kodo, Holy Light.
All right. Well, Freshka now has the opportunity to put his taunts down and get that Holy Light, which is really important. So now he can bounce back up to that 11 health, which is critical. You just want to be above 9 if you ever get the board clear, because the 9 does allow the Soulfire tap into Doomguard combination, which everyone has lost to at some point in their Hearthstone career. And if you haven't been playing more than a month or two, that's for sure. So the Holy Light does go down on Freshka and bounce back up to 11. Important to get that down. So I suppose he wanted to go for this and not only fit the curve better with the Aldor Peacekeeper and the Acolyte of Pain, but now he can go for Sludge Belcher and then Holy Light, and now whatever he can do to respond.
Yeah, this game looks Still pretty strong for the Paladin, but I mean the Zoo's not out of it here. You can. You're really just wanting to draw Doomguard at this point. Chow. I mean, you're gonna be able to clear Sludge Belcher here fairly effectively. I guess you just go face with the rest of it.
Yeah, you've got about 5 damage to go beyond this, and you still have like the Nerubian, which your opponent has to push through. Still a pretty looking board. It's a full house here, 7 minions.
Yeah, he's considering killing the Aldor Peacekeeper to protect the egg, but I like this play more. Get more damage on the face, just make the Paladin have the clear. Oh, wow.
Wow, Consecration off the top. That's pretty much almost as good as it gets.
Yeah. He needs to kill that zombie Chow.
He certainly can.
Oh, Owl's a fantastic draw too. Just gives him another play this turn. He just needed to be able to do something on this board.
Basically a +2 life.
Yeah, wow, that Consecration draw is insane. If that was possibly any other card in his deck.
Hold on.
Yeah, you aim that at
Hold
the
the
face
phone.
and life tap. For sure.
Yeah, right now he has 4 on board, plus the 4 from Soulfire. He's 3 damage short, which means he does need Doomguard or Soulfire. I don't see another +3 in his deck in any other way.
Yep, he is. Kaldi's not playing Power Overwhelming. Freshka was playing 1. So yeah, he's going to go for it here. And
oh, a big moment of truth. And he gets Echoing Ooze, which isn't it.
yeah,
But at least now he's able to clear the board from the Paladin.
I like this play. You want to get him in range of your second Soulfire. He has only played the 1, correct? This game? I think so.
Yes, that was the first one he drew. Yeah, makes total sense too. 4 is effectively same as 2.
See, because he put off playing that Sludge Belcher on that 1 turn, he's basically putting off playing Kodo now. This could be a Kodo turn to help him stabilize a bit more. It was very greedy, I think, to play it the way he did. But, you know, Zoo's not really seeing Doomguards, so he isn't being punished for it too hard.
Oh, the juggle onto the Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, what a card.
Weakens.
Yeah, those 1/2s just it's just not worth making the attack.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is, Tyrion. So.
Wow, Tyrion to seal the game. Unless there's
Oh,
another
no.
Soulfire.
He threw. He needed to go face there, because then you give Zoo 1 less turn to draw Soulfire.
Well, it doesn't work out. Soulfire is not drawn, and it looks like Kaldi can't push through here.
Yeah, but he's not dead anymore, because he didn't attack face with Sludge Belcher, so now Freshka doesn't have lethal anymore. So Kaldi's going to have 1 extra draw to hit Soulfire.
Well, assuming Freshka doesn't have the damage immediately, but I believe you're right.
This is, this... I mean, it's obviously not great for the Zoo deck, but, you know, there is a chance it wins at this point. Oh, wow, he's going to... It's just fine, I guess. It's not too bad.
You gotta hold the Zombie Chow too, not to give your opponent any ability to gain life. Oh, double Kodo. And trade down. Well, I think you do put him down to 2 life, though. Definitely don't give him the ability to tap anymore.
Wow. It's just, I don't know, it's just a classic mistake of playing too defensively with your control deck. Oh, Kaldi looks happy. Is there justice in the world? Yeah, there is.
Oh, Soulfire directly to the face to end it, but you know what? Just like you said, Freshka gave him that window of opportunity.
Freshka
And it ended up costing him. Wow.
He made 3 decisions that game, any of which, if he made differently, he would have won. If he played Sludge Belcher instead of the Peacekeeper Acolyte, if he attacked face with Sludge Belcher, and then I guess the third decision was trading off his soldiers for Spectral Spider tokens. But that decision didn't end up mattering because Soulfire was the first card off the top that turn. So, yeah, well played by Kaldi though.
Rough stuff for Freshka. He goes down 0-2 to the Zoo deck. Now, Kaldi can't play this anymore, and Freshka still has all of his decks live, but at least Kaldi got two important wins, and now is going to kind of shift over to his other two decks, which I don't know if we... do you know the other two decks that Kaldi has at his arsenal here?
We had it up on the screen a little bit ago. I want to say it was Paladin and Druid, or no, Rogue. Or no, it's Freshka, my mistake. Shaman Warrior. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Shaman and Warrior. So close, but if you just moved your eyes to the left of the screen, you would have seen it. So, yeah. All right. Now, the Shaman and the Warrior. So from here, the now that you have to face off against the rest of the three classes, which could be live from Freshka, where would you go here if you're Caldy?
Well, you're not allowed to play Warlock anymore, right?
No, because it's been played twice.
Okay,
Oh,
so
this is best of seven. Excuse me. Can be played three times. In the
yeah,
round of 64, when there was a 64 split, it was a two play. I guess you could play it a third time here if you
I would
want
play
to.
Zoo again. It really depends on that Shaman build and how comfortable he is at playing the Miracle Rogue matchup. But Rogue is scary. Freshka's Rogue, if that is Miracle, is actually favored against all three of Caldy's decks, especially if it gets coin against Zoo. So it's I don't know. It's tough. It really. I guess I would pick Warlock, but it's the thing with the blind pick format that I'm not a big fan of is it doesn't really matter, right? Because there's no advantage or disadvantage to picking anything. It's all just random. Yeah, there are a bit of mind games. What do you think your opponent will play? But ultimately, you're just kind of picking something that you're comfortable with, and hoping you walk into a good matchup. That's why you're seeing a lot of these well-rounded decks like Zoo, Shaman, Warrior, because it is blind pick. You can't counter your opponent's deck with a favorable matchup. So decks with 80-20 matchups where they're 80% favored in some matchups, 20% favored in others, then those decks aren't as good because if you just blind pick them and your opponent happens to pick Shaman into it, for example, all of a sudden you just walk into a loss that you have no control over. So you're seeing a lot more well-rounded decks. Shaman, Warrior, Zoo. It reminds me a lot of Ladder, honestly. It's kind of like best of seven Ladder where you're just blind picking stuff.
I think the counter argument is that if you're playing a last hero standing, people are picking counters into your deck anyways. It's the idea that they get to pick their optimal deck that's best against you to capitalize on your weakness, right? If you lead
It
off
def-
with Handlock and you beat it, Hunter's live, they play Hunter, and then you play like Warrior into that. Just
and that leads to a
becomes like
lot of 5-4 series, which I personally think is better than 4-0 sweeps from walking into good matchups. But it depends. They both have advantages and disadvantages.
all right, and with that, let's go into game three and see if Kaldi can continue this streak. If he's going to use that Warlock deck once again, or he's going to switch it up, and he does. So he keeps Zoo in his back pocket, which he can bring later in the tournament. And in the meantime, he's going to go to Warrior. Now, interesting card already off the bat. We see Gorehowl being mixed into the Warrior class, and I feel like some Warriors are starting to experiment with it. We've seen Firebat try to put Gorehowl back, but this was a card that was replaced when Deathbite first came out because what Deathbite was able to do with less mana and still kind of have the same effect. What's your opinion on Gorehowl nowadays here, Reynad?
Gorehowl is a very different card from Deathbite. Like Deathbite is a card that gets you mid-game board control, whereas Gorehowl is just a win condition, like Ragnaros or Alexstrasza, in that it just locks your opponent out of the game in certain matchups. Now, big fan of the turn one Squelch. I from Caldi, I misplay that a lot on ladder and end up making myself frustrated later on when I'm getting BM'd. But yeah, in terms of Gorehowl, it's the reason you started to see it fall off in popularity was because of Hunter. In matchups like Hunter, you just can't afford to take the damage to your face, and the card is just completely dead. But in other matchups, like against Shaman, for example, it's pretty much your best card. It's also good in the mirror, so might
Yeah,
start
well, so when
seeing.
Hunters are being cycled out, then Gorehowl will come back more in popularity then.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
actually ended up playing it myself in my show match against Tides in my Warrior deck because we got to
Yeah,
ban.
I didn't get to watch that. How'd that go for you?
It was like we had to play all 9 classes. Tides ended up winning 5-4. It was pretty cool games. Got to see some decks we don't usually get to see.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, Paladin
Your
aggro.
preview of the
Swept
week.
it. I think they streamed it yesterday over at Via Game. Those guys do good stuff for Hearthstone.
Yeah, check out their video game qualifiers and tournament in October for sure. Now, it's interesting to note that we haven't touched upon this just yet, but it looks like that Freshka has 4-drop with Violet Teacher here as his card of choice instead of maybe the Gnomish Inventors or even the
Yeah,
Sentient Shield Master. What do you think about Violet Teacher being included here?
I mean, it's a card you see occasionally in rogue decks. And the word I like to use for cards like that is just cute. They're not exactly good, but they're there for the sake of being different. I'm not a big fan of it personally because it needs to be exactly. The reason it's bad is because it needs to be like in your opening hand, right? So you need to play it on turn 4 because if you're drawing it on turn 7 or 8, you're just not gonna have the time to play it or do anything with it. Whereas a card like Gnomish Inventor will get you an extra draw on those later turns towards a card like a Sap that you might need. Um, so yeah, Violet Teacher, it can be strong on turn 4, but it's also weak to Hunter. I mean, it's not terrible. It's a preference thing, but I'm not a fan personally. I'm very picky when it comes to card choices, though, I guess. Um,
Oh,
well, it
by
looks
the way,
like
it is important to note. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Senjin's becoming way more popular lately in warrior decks, and it's just putting in so much work here.
Galde almost actually killed off Ascension by accident by using Cruel Taskmaster beforehand. I just wanted to slip in here that we got word from the admins. Leroy and Buzzard has been banned for this tournament, so you might also be confused as to why even if Hunter was available for choice, why no one picked it. It
Yeah,
is
that makes
because
sense.
Buzzard was banned, and then you see no Leroy in the Rogue deck, and
I'd
Feshka
still play
seems to be
Hunter.
more of a board centric, and because of that ban, he can't use Leroy as a card.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. I wonder if Miracle Rogue is still a strong deck. Like instead of Shadow Steps, it looks like he's just playing, more creatures, Cold Bloods, get the damage through the fairway. The Warrior just has such a sick board, though. I mean, double Senjin is a fantastic draw. Tough to come back from.
Well, he can
Oh,
start the
there you
chain
go.
draws to get Sap.
That's
Wow.
exactly the card he needed. Wow, he's not gonna. This makes no sense to me. You have to. I guess you don't have to. I see the thinking. Okay, that's fair. But he should attack with the Gadgetson into the 2/2, I think, because Sylvanas is going to kill Gadgetson. So do you
Now count.
copy Sylvanas here? Or maybe... That's a lot of options.
Yeah, you can copy Sylvanas, trade her off, steal a minion, and you still have another Sylvanas, by the way.
Let none survive.
You can even push for damage like what Caldy's doing.
And he
go for a
wants
brawl
the damage,
play.
and I really hope he doesn't brawl here. Oh my god, why? He could have just cleared the board and been I mean, this does the same thing. I guess.
Well, I mean, when you just clear off the board anyway and keep Sylvanas alive, it's a 5 damage sweep on the opponent's board. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. You get damage on, so you're getting your opponent closer to Grommash range. It's definitely a card he's
Not
looking to draw
bad.
before.
Not bad. That was a 5-mana Flame Strike. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he could be ahead on board more though, couldn't he? Couldn't he have like killed the board and had a? I guess it's like the same outcome.
So many.
Okay.
Yeah, he would have left up. Well, it's a coin flip, right? Because after he faceless and trades into Gadget and uses Cruel Taskmaster, he could leave up like the 1/1 and 3/3, does some stuff to the board. This way, at least it gets a guaranteed clear if you're called controlling the RNG. That is.
That's true.
Pay attention, class.
Violet Teacher. Okay. This makes more sense now as a card choice. He doesn't have Leroy in his deck. He's just kind of wants another win condition.
Yeah. It's also got sprint. Interesting inclusion. Like
Oh
Gadget
my.
Sand prep sprint on like turn 8.
Oh, it's a double Violet Teacher. That's more of like a. That's a pretty cool deck actually. It's like Control Rogue with just like a Control Rogue Tempo Rogue hybrid.
Yeah. All right. Well, back over in Caldy land. He's got ways to clear the board too here. But he also keeps in mind that Leroy is banned. So with the fact that this rogue is more board centric, how do you think it stacks against a deck like this? Because Warrior beforehand was still giving Miracle trouble with his life gain capabilities. Do you feel like it's even more of a problem now that you don't have Leroy as a potential win condition?
I mean, it probably makes the matchup better for Rogue, if anything. It's probably still difficult, but um, you have like resilient threats that can deal recursive damage now, rather than being all in on the Leroy combo. Because the reason Warrior could win so many games against Rogue before was sometimes you would just get into a situation where you wouldn't have the damage left to kill them because you were so reliant on that Leroy burst. But now the damage that the Rogue can deal is potentially limitless.
Oh man, the chain draws are starting. He's got double cold blood too.
Yeah.
Shade of Naxxramas, and another inclusion to be more of that board centric. And he's got conceal.
God.
His opponent is ready to use the brawl. This is bad news for Caldi here, Ray.
There you go. No more brawl in the deck. It should be game, I think. That's man, that was such a sick draw.
Wow, 13 damage, waiting just with the minions on board, +3 on the deadly poison charge. Caldi's in big trouble here.
He does have unstable duel, but I believe Freshka has a sap. Could you? Let's see, there's no way to kill your own. Yeah, this is just not what you want to see if you're Caldi. I think what you have to do here is, okay, what you do is you unstable ghoul and you copy unstable ghoul and armor up, and you hope to just draw Gromosh. If he's greedy, he could shield block armor and then unstable ghoul and hope that Freshka doesn't have the sack. But I would do this. Copy that, armor up.
Gives himself
This way
2
you're at least-
chances.
Yeah, you're at least not taking the 9. It's just... Like, honestly, the Warrior can afford to take some damage against this Rogue deck. It doesn't have as much burst as traditional Miracle Rogue.
Oh, yeah, that's for certain. There's no charters. It's just solely the minions on board, and then your Cold Bloods are supposed to compensate for some of this damage. I actually lost to this deck earlier today. I saw a dog playing it, and he 30-0'd me. I was playing Priest because he just had the gadget stand there under Conceal, and then the double Cold Blood with like an insane Viscerate plus double Deadly Poison and Blade Flurry. So it still has the burst potential, but it does require a lot more setup.
Yeah, it's interesting that Freshka is attacking here to get the 1 extra point of damage next turn, when he still has a Blade Flurry in his like 5-card deck, or however many cards there are there. This is the issue, though, with playing those mid-rangey creatures like Shade of Naxxramas and Violet T-Shirt in your Miracle deck. In your Miracle deck, when your Gadgetzin goes off, you end up drawing through most of your deck, and you don't want to be playing 3 drops on turn 10 that take a full turn to do anything. So this is why, yes, if you draw your cards in the right order, and your Shade of Naxxramas and Violet Teachers are in your opening hand, and you develop them on board early, then yeah, your deck plays very smoothly. But when you Gadgetzin and you're using removal in the early game, the cards you're drawing in the late game, rather than just killing your opponent like Leroy combo or Sinister Strikes would, now they're these mid-rangey creatures. So the Warrior deck's going to have more time to sort of deal with what the Rogue is doing. Doesn't really matter, though, because, Lotheb kind of locks him out of the game here, but, it's something that could have come up.
Yeah, this Lotheb costing 5 more mana is such a headache to Caldi because you can't do anything other than execute and pass. Now, the good news is there is no Leroy, but there is 8 damage, and we know that Freshka can now load up the board once more.
It's worth noting, Caldi drew the literal worst card in his deck. If he drew any card in his deck that wasn't like the Cairn, or that wasn't the Cairn or Black Knight, he would have had a much smoother play that turn. I suppose the spell would have been more awkward, but oh no, my mistake. Ysera was worse. Okay, there are 3 cards he didn't want to draw, and he drew them back to back. That is actually pretty unlucky. That could have been a Sludge Belcher, a spell, a Deathbite, a Gromosh.
Gromosh is the card he's looking for. He does have the cool Taskmaster in hand. He's been sitting on this for a while.
Is there any way he could live this turn?
See, he's at 15. His opponent has
18.
Yeah.
So it's looks like it's game. I mean, I don't see a way to survive here.
He's got 18 through just what's right here. So Caldi is going to concede, and Freshka will get on the board with his control Miracle Tempo Rogue. I don't know what to call this,
It's just
but I
Miracle
have
Rogue
seen it
dude.
before. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
it's
I
just
guess
Miracle
it's
Rogue dude.
alright.
Some people were playing like Shade and Extramus and Vile Teacher, you know, even with Leroy, but usually
It's
only
true.
as like a one of. Yeah, it's a solid deck though. Looks strong. Double Conceal is definitely going to wreck Control Warrior, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, because then you really rely on those gadget Zans and making sure to get good cold blood damage in through double conceals, which totally directed me earlier today on ladder for sure. Anyways, we go to game number 4, and let's hop back onto the selection screen so we can kind of get a tally of how much games have been played of what. So it seems like Freshka has spread out pretty evenly so far, 3 games in. And it'll come into play as it develops. And once again, you have the ability to play any class from this point on. So it's like the series is brand new and fresh.
Absolutely. Man, it's rough that Caldy can't just keep playing Zoo a million times. I guess you pick Shaman here, knowing that the Rogue deck is playing like kind of more of a conceal plan. Like maybe Shaman is. I'm trying to think of like how the new Miracle Rogue stacks up against Shaman. Normally, it's a matchup that traditionally favors Rogue because of cards like Blade Flurry, Deadly Poison, just like Shaman not being able to really gain life or interact with so much of Rogue's game plan. But now that it's more creature reliant, maybe you can afford to get use out of your cards like Hex. I don't know. It still seems favored for Rogue, I think. Cards like Vile Teacher and Shade and Extramus, and still the conceals are so hard to interact with. It's probably favored for Miracle Rogue for all the same matchups that Rogue is favored against Warrior as well. So maybe you just pick Warrior again and hope for the best. I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like,
Warrior still has a chance against everything, but if you run into the Paladin, you're crying. You're pretty
yeah, I
sad.
guess it is a slow Paladin, double Kodo. It's pretty rough. Well,
All right,
let's
well,
get into the game and see what they decided to go with.
yeah, game 4, it's pretty much the midway point here. Doesn't really matter either way the choices of classes, and we're gonna see it once again. Warrior versus the Rogue here, the Miracle Rogue. Azure Drake, an excellent card to keep in the beginning of your hand, just be able to pressure early on, and get the draw. But he's not on the coin, so I guess he'll be sad if he picks up Gadget Sand, or if he even gets Gadget Sand. That you're still kind of subject to this kind of scenario. But the good news is you are more minion centric with some of those earlier cards like Shade and Violet Teacher.
Absolutely. It's interesting he's still keeping Azure Drake when he has cards like Shade and Vile Teacher in his deck. I think I still would too, but it's pretty unlucky for Freshka to not, open on those minions that he really wants to see early rather than late. I mean, yeah, just didn't really get to play Shade and Extramus until the very last turn of the game last time. I like the Shade Cold Blood synergy though. Seems strong.
Yeah,
From Caldy's
it's
side,
like you
would
get the
have
conceal
double Shade?
preemptively.
Yeah, definitely. Freshka still trying to bluff some 2-drops and stuff. Weapon, pass back.
Does the bluffing ever truly affect you as a player,
No.
or do you just kind of not pay attention to that stuff?
I do pay attention to it, but I pretty much always call it for what it is because nobody's gonna put a card like Loot Hoarder in their deck on purpose. So it's just like there's literally no card it could be. Like even if you had Loot Hoarder in your deck, you'd probably weapon up turn 2 against Warrior.
Well, there's no rational plays, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. When there's no rational plays, then they're bluffing, and then you basically don't look into their hand for the rest of the match. You don't try to glean information from it ever again once you know that it's like in their range to bluff. Very few players do it in tournaments though, mostly because it's half the time your opponent's not paying attention anyway. Half the time they misread it, even if they are. So.
Yeah, that's true. A little bit too meta there. All right, Freshka curving out pretty nicely. He's getting the 3 and 4 drops.
Violet Teacher, the Dream, right here. That was a great draw. I mean, I said he wanted those Shades and the Violet Teachers early, and he ended up drawing them perfectly on time in the right order. So Now the deck looks a lot stronger.
And the previous game too, he drew them late game and he still had this opportunity to maybe close it out. Or he did have the opportunity to close it out without them, even though he did end up relying it later in the stages of the game. Kali's under some pretty reasonable pressure here.
Yeah, I think you have to Taskmaster and Armor. Like, I want to say that's better than executing. Okay. Execute could let you shield block this turn just to get a card deeper. But yeah, you probably need that execute to deal with Violet Teacher. So I don't mind this play. SI Agent. Really?
SI implies he wants to go for a cold blood play, but I feel like the Azure Drake feels way too tempting, and he picks up Backstab, another card to activate the Violet Teacher. This is starting to get out of hand.
Yeah, he's not respecting Brawl at all, which is gonna work out for him because Kali doesn't have it here.
Here we go.
This deck's kind of cool, man. I gotta admit.
Yeah, it is cool. Like when you draw stuff in the right order, if you draw the Shade and the Violet Teacher on curve, the deck is insane.
Well, it's the same thought that I have with like whenever I watch Bloodlust Shaman. I'm like, how can this deck ever lose? And then it never gets a board. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how. Yeah.
It certainly never runs out of cards, though. You know, against a deck like Warrior, it's going to give you time. It's definitely going to perform just fine.
Well, he even has Gadgetzan Auctioneer.
Yeah, let's see. I really don't like playing that here. I would just be scared of Brawl. Like, you're so far ahead anyway.
Yeah,
I guess if he doesn't play it, he's not doing anything, though. Alright, that's fair. I guess he could play. And he's got Sprint in his deck, another Gadgetzan. You're probably not going to run out of cards if you run this out there.
Yeah, do offer a draw, plus you can kill off the Violet Teacher and see what you draw, but it seems like he's going to favor for, again, more of the board-centric play.
This is really aggressive. Like, why even save the Auctioneer if you're going to use all your spells? I don't understand. I would just played the... I mean, it doesn't matter. He's just too far ahead, and Kali doesn't have a Brawl, so... Luckily for Kali, though, even though none of his decks are favored against this rogue, he won't have to play against it again, because after, you know, this is Freshka's second time playing it, and with this rule set, he won't be able to pick it again, so...
Yeah, he can. He can play it 3 times, but not
right.
more than 3 times. All right, the 2 times was for the round of 64 Swiss, but
okay.
you are correct.
Wonder if he
In
should have played
almost every other. All right, well, he only has one course of action, which is survive, kill out the 5-1, and toss it back over.
I might have killed Azure Drake instead, but it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Well,
Blade
I guess he still has an opportunity to draw, and he even clears a 4-2. He has Sprint! Look at that! Deck lines up almost perfectly.
Everything in the right order. Yeah, This is a really good game for Freshka.
Yeah, this is a movie ending if I've ever seen one for Hearthstone. Peter Jackson directed this one. Well, actually, Freshka and Peter Jackson kind of have this connection, I think.
Well played.
I think so. All right, game's gonna end. Kali can't do anything. He doesn't get Brawl, and there's no opportunity to potentially survive, so he's gonna pass it over. And looks like Freshka's gonna even up the series. Well done.
Yeah,
This rogue deck is pretty cool, man.
Definitely. So Freshka can play the rogue deck one more time. Kali can play the Zoo deck one more time if he wants. Or he could keep running Warrior into it. I don't think, honestly, from Kali's perspective, I don't think it matters which of his decks he plays against this rogue. I think Zoo probably has the best chance of any of his decks, but they're all pretty weak to the rogue, in my opinion. The rogue is playing a lot of slower cards like Violet Teacher, Shade and Axramus, Conceal, Cold Blood. Like, these are cards that Zoo doesn't really care about. So maybe you play that, but, you know, even if you pick Zoo, there's no guarantee that Freshka will pick rogue.
Yeah, that is true. The overlay hasn't updated, but there is 2 marks for the Warrior, 2 marks for the Warlock player that we know it's Zoo. And then Freshka has 1 each, except he's got additional 1 on Rogue. So, spreading it out here seems to be a strategy that Freshka's taking while Kaldi is trying to line up his decks to potentially get into matchups that he feels like is strong. So now it comes down to the point where if he plays either deck and he loses, he can't use it again. Or even if he wins, actually. If he wins or loses with his Zoo or his Warrior deck, Kaldi cannot play it whatsoever. This is starting to get a little confusing even for me here. And I was the one who helped make the suggestion for this format, tweak it a little bit. So yeah, bear with us, guys. I hope you guys are able to do it, but the overlay should be able to help you here, as Milkcast is doing his best to help represent accurately what's going on.
And definitely. So I wonder if you're Freshka here, would you just open on Rogue or Paladin? I mean, from my perspective, I don't think it matters. I think you just play whatever and see what happens.
Well, the only thing that, as a player, I think you don't want to do is make yourself more predictable by playing something a third time, and then your opponent doesn't have to account for that in the next match pick. So like the mystique of the third deck choice is what kind of throws off Kaldi, I think, or Freshka, either way. So like I wouldn't like him to pick a Rogue a third time here.
Okay, that makes sense. From my perspective, it's kind of like you're picking into something random every game. So whether that happens, yeah, I guess you have the option to pick Rogue into something random later by not picking it now. That makes some sense.
I understand your point of view though, because you're thinking like as if these are the three most dominant decks on ladder, and it's just guessing.
Yeah, I mean that's what it feels like to me. I feel like Rogue is favored against all three of Kaldi's decks, but then like, no, you think you do pick Rogue because he's played Warrior and Zoo twice, so there's a 60% chance that you get to knock out one of those decks, and then at that point you're more comfortable picking Zoo or Paladin into a good matchup. Because like for example, if he happens to beat Zoo here, then he can pick Paladin against either Shaman or Warrior and have a favorable matchup there. Whereas if he were to, how do I put this? Basically, Freshka's Zoo deck is weak to Kaldi's Warrior deck, and Freshka's Paladin deck is weak to Kaldi's Zoo deck. So those two decks have a bad matchup. But if you pick Rogue and you knock one of those decks out, then for the rest of the series, you know that, for example, he won't have access to Warrior. So then your Zoo deck is much more effective. So you can just pick that safely into either of his other two decks.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the play it seems like Freshka is making by spreading it out. Game 5 is prepared, so let's jump into the mulligans. See if they can continue it and figure out more of this.
Like I said.
So you're saying Rogue again? Oh, look at that. Zoo Mirrors is the last time Kaldi can play this, by the way. And once again, Kaldi is going to be on the coin. He gets Soulfire even to boot. Wow, this opening hand.
Why would you mulligan that as the best card in the mirror? Oh no.
Oof.
Yeah, that's not good. That's how you snowball with that card. It puts you ahead on board on turn 3 guaranteed.
Yeah, coin and Soulfire just feels like you just jump up 3 minions ahead of your opponent.
I just feel like people need to swallow. People need to swallow their pride more often and just jam a bunch of Zoo mirrors on ladder. It's not for as long as the deck's been around. I feel like it's still a matchup that's easy to mess up. Right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Freshka not happy about that, by the way. He saw an Undertaker start, but he unfortunately able to smack it down.
Kaldi misplayed twice. He mulliganed the Soulfire and then he didn't coin the Juggler. If he coined Juggler, the worst thing that could have happened is a 1-for-1. Even though Freshka would be trading up on mana, he would need the buff, which he had in this case, but he could have like set up a huge Undertaker that was harder to interact with later, I think. This is okay,
I think
though.
the only way
you can still play Defender on curve, which is so strong if you can turn 4 Defender.
Ooh, well, how about this? You have an opportunity to pop the egg as Kaldi, and you're able to even drop an Echoing Ooze or a Knife Juggler with it.
Yeah, you definitely got to do this. It's looking really good for Kaldi now. Okay, so Freshka's hand at this point is very clunky. I don't like that play. Yeah, you have to go Golem Flame Imp, but it feels really over to me already. I mean, that's a turn 4 Nerubian. Like, what can you do at this point? He did
I mean, you
position
need to
his
get
Nerubians.
Soulfire or something here to pull back.
Yeah, he should have put the Nerubian egg in the middle and the Harvest Golem on the side, because you're definitely going to defend her the egg, so you can that'll give you more options on how to defend her. But not a huge mistake, I guess. It probably won't punish him, because he's probably just not going to have creatures.
It seems inconsequential because most likely everything but the Nerubian egg can go down here this turn.
Yeah, you run the Abusive into the Flame Imp, and then you go Nerubian Egg, or Nerubian into the Harvest Golem, and then Juggler Haunted Creeper. He should... I guess I see the logic here, but I still don't like it. I would still trade the 2-1 first. He's thinking that even if it juggles Flame Imp, he can trade a 1-2 into it. Loses the 50-50 on a good hit. Not a big deal. He's still like just way too far ahead to lose at this point, unless Fresh Guy plays Hellfire.
No, he plays Lotheb though.
Yeah, Lotheb, Void Terror. It's I'm trying to think of a way that Fresh Guy could win this game at this point, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, Defender of Argus is the kind of card that can catch you up, but you're facing like 9 power on board, or 8 power on board. No, 9. That's just absurd. I mean, it's turn 5. Like, he's gonna take around 10 damage next turn, and yeah, I mean, at that point, the game is just mostly over, because even if he draws the cards he needs to stabilize the board, Kali's gonna have such a lead on life totals that he'll just be going face while Fresh Guy attacks creatures. And you know, it's not like either of these decks will ever run out of cards because of hero power, so eventually he's just gonna...
Oh yeah, I totally identify. Chaldees kind of can still put on a lot of pressure too, and depends on how these juggles pan out. It could be really nice. Depends on how he is. Oh, he's gonna go for the guaranteed kill on the Nerubian.
He should trade the... Oh, this is awkward actually.
I like getting the juggles on the Haunted Creepers as well to see what you get.
Shouldn't he have buffed the Haunted? Yeah, the Haunted Creeper, so you trade off and then get more juggles. Okay, so now you run Haunted Creeper into the Nerubian. And he missed an attack.
Missed damage. Okay, pretty sloppy here from Caldi. I think he was just indecisive, and in the end, just ended the turn very quickly. Didn't think about his plays. And, well, we saw in the previous game where the 1 or 2 damage really does end up adding a pretty significant impact if Freshka is able to get like a 2-card combination of Soulfire and Doomguard to climb back into this game.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not using caster cams for this particular tournament, because I have a nice big red spot on my forehead from the amount of face palming in this match. It's, I don't know. People need to step up their zoo game. That's what I feel like. It's a deck you just haven't seen in tournaments for a long time because of Hunter, but yeah, both of these players could have played a lot better, I think, this game. It's pretty over, though, from Quality's perspective. If you don't play a card like Hellfire or Shadow Flame, there's just no way to catch up at this point.
Yeah, you're too far behind on board, and he's not drawing to the cards he needs. Well, I don't think this changes much, because the trades are just too powerful, and your opponent keeps leveraging what's on the board. And like you said, you're really far ahead on life to the point where you can't life tap anymore without reasonably putting yourself within lethal range. So Vreshka is super far behind. He's thinking about what to silence, which the difference is about the same.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a good juggle. I'm cheering for a Doomguard top deck so we can get to the next game quickly. We'll see.
How
though.
about Soulfire?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a way to catch up here. I'm just not. I think the way you catch up here was not playing Zombie Chow, and then you wipe that into Doomguard.
Wow. Well, he got the exact combination, but has to wait till next turn. But at least he has a 5 damage charger to seal the game anyways. Float 4 mana, still be able to get full of heart. And that's kind of what the important thing of starting off quickly.
Yep. Alright. Well, that game just kind of snowballed out of control. That's usually how the Zoo matchup goes, is one player kind of snowballs it. Usually with the aid of cards like Soulfire, or one of the players just stumbling on curve a little bit. But, yeah, so that's the last time that Caldy plays Zoo, correct?
Yes, he's used Warlock 3 times, so now he has to use Warrior or Shaman. And Freshka has this knowledge, so he can pick whatever he feels like is good against both.
Absolutely. I
So
mean, maybe just run out Shaman and see how it does against Rogue. I don't know. It's kind of rough no matter what against Freshka's Rogue deck. I think Freshka's Rogue deck is going to beat either Shaman or Warrior. The other two matchups are going to be a little bit more interesting. Mm. I think Kaldi's
I think
Warrior is
Paladin
favored
is
against
still
Freshka.
really good though. Like Paladin
Yeah,
feels pretty strong against the Warrior, of course, and it feels very good against Shaman, even though there are options for Shaman to take advantage of the mid game.
I agree with that. I think the Paladin deck is favored against both of Kaldi's remaining decks. So if I were Freshka, I guess I would pick Paladin or Rogue. It doesn't much matter. Honestly, it's going to be tough for Kaldi to close this set out because, uh, yeah, the Paladin and the Rogue deck should both, like, they're both heavily favored, I think, against both of Kaldi's remaining decks. So even though Freshka is down a game here, I think he's going to win the next two uh, to win the series 4-3.
I want to see a
But anything can
Nixia,
happen.
man.
These cards.
That's what I want to see. I saw a Nixia in the glimpse of the mulligan, unless my eyes have been failing me. And I
Yeah,
want
that
to see a
was,
Nixia being played competitively right now. That'd be cool.
yeah, card's awesome. It used to
Yeah.
be decent before Next Ramus. It was kind of underplayed. It's kind of like a neutral Cenarius, but weak to Big Game Hunter, which is one of Cenarius' biggest strengths in the game is that it's resilient to Big Game Hunter and Faceless Manipulator, which almost no other finisher is. But yeah, and Nixia definitely weak to BGH. Still not too bad though.
All right. Well, we want to take this opportunity, by the way, while we get ready for our sixth game, to remind you guys to check out the sponsor of the event. You see, Prismata.net is a game that you can sign up and you can get a free beta key by typing in the code PJSALT. And you can check out the game, see for yourself. If you want more information about the Cup, too, about the previous rounds, as well as more background from Alex Weiss and some of the stuff he's been doing, you go to prisma.net/cup and find out more information there in terms of how people have qualified. We've got our list of great players. Kaldi and Freshka are just two of them. Trump actually managed to go through the qualifiers, probably the most recognized name, along with Calento. So we have a mix of some of the popular players as well as the people who have been in a while in the tournament scene for some time. So it's a
Yeah,
good
and
mix of players.
remember, guys, the reason that we get to have a bunch of just cool tournaments to watch throughout the week is because of sponsors like this. So, even if you're not necessarily interested in competing in Hearthstone, if you just like video games, like to have fun, go ahead, go to Prismata.net, give their game a try. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll get addicted for a while. I'm definitely gonna give it a shot next time I have some free time. And yeah,
All right, so 2015, you can see Reynad play
exactly.
Prismatic.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to game 6 and see if Kaldi and Freshka can even up or Kaldi will close it out. As much as you were worried about maybe a 4-0 blowout with random picks, it seems like each series has still been back and forth here. Paladin it is into Shaman. I like this choice a lot. The AoE clears from the Paladin great. The hero power stack up pretty nicely. And you are very good at defensive to put yourself out of range of Shaman Burst. But of course, there are ways to leverage that. And one of them, if you flood the board with like Violet Teachers, I guess that's another opportunity here
Yeah, I
for
would keep the
Kaldi.
equality, even though you're probably not going to play it to like turn 8, just to make sure that it's not in the bottom 5 cards of the deck. Because that happens just way too often as Paladin. It's like a card you need in a lot of cases to win. So it's a decent hand from the Shaman. If Freshka doesn't see a True Silver champion, that Manatide's going to trade for Owl, I guess.
Yeah, Mantat Totem pretty nasty in the control matchups if you can get it off. Now, Kaldi's playing a very token-centric deck with the Haunted Creepers and the Death Rattle as well as Violet Teacher.
Why did he
But
play
no sign of a
Ruby
finisher without Bloodlust.
Why did he play Nerubian Egg on turn 2 against the deck with Paladin Hero Power instead of Haunted Creeper? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
He had Rockbiter, so probably wants to activate it somehow.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Freshka doesn't have Owl anymore. Maybe just throw down Manatide here, get some cards going.
I think he's testing for True Silver Champion now, like you mentioned before.
Definitely. You want to be really conservative with your Consecrations as the Paladin player here, because it's definitely your most important card against Shaman. Shaman's going to try to win by flooding the board, getting board control, and then using removal to deal with your bigger threats, like Sludge Belcher, Tyrion, that kind of stuff. I'm sure Freshka's going to be very careful not to get his Tyrion hexed, though. But yeah, Consecration is the way that you catch up once Shaman starts to snowball against you.
Oh, Healing Totem, pretty nice to get himself some good ability to match up against Paladin Hero Power. Let's see. Caldy's really thinking about which trade he should take here.
Yeah, it's a tough call. You want to kill a 1/1 because it's free value, but you also want to kill Ironbeak Owl so that your Healing Totem stays alive. I think he made the right call there, though, in trading with the Owl. That Healing Totem's gonna... It has the potential to get a lot of value here.
I think when you're holding cards like the Feral Spirits and whatever cards that you want to get a lot of value off of and doesn't just get immediately punished, I think Healing Totem has a lot of value in protecting it.
Yeah. He's definitely going to want to play Azure Drake in the same turn that he Lightning Bolts. I'm not sure why he's taking damage with his face in this case instead of Rock Fighter and Creature, but yeah, to each his own. So Consecration is just going to deal with the board here at this point. I mean, I like his decision to hold off on playing Azure Drake until the same turn that he can Lightning Bolt, but this was not executed as well as it could have been.
Oh boy, Consecration clear.
Yeah, like it's a matchup that
deal with that is
probably favors Paladin to begin with, but yeah, Caldy really needed to never slip up, I think, in order to really have a good shot at it. Like, in this case, he has to play Fire Elemental, and then he's going to get Eldar Peacekeeper. Maybe he can draw an Earthshock and Earthshock his own Fire Elemental and do something with that. I don't know.
There's a lot of death rattles now. The mid-range creatures like Sylvanas and Cairn could be in the Paladin deck. I think you need to save it for that because you're using Hex on Tyrion.
This is an extremely low curve Shaman deck. This is like a Shaman deck I would play if I was trying to beat Hunter. I mean, he has no Alakir, no cards that cost more than Fire Elemental.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised he doesn't have just like a... He's only playing one Lightning Bolt too. Wow, he's very minion-centric. One Lightning Storm, one Lightning Bolt, no Alakir, double Creeper, and double Egg. So yeah, it's a very board flood, and that's what kind of surprised me. He didn't have something like Bloodlust as a potential finisher.
Yeah. So you definitely just Drake Bolt, right? Take out the.
Yeah,
you
you
don't
had 6 mana, but you have 5, so that's unfortunate.
Oh man. It's that's a tough turn, I guess.
Yeah, the playing the Azure Drake simply here still opens you up to the possibility of True Silver, and then your board completely disappears. But I don't feel like there's an alternative play.
Yeah, I mean it's either like play Drake or play Violet Teacher. I like his decision there. Just play Drake. It's probably the best option he has. Freshka is gonna hold on to his second Consecration. Not gonna play that unless he absolutely has to.
Yeah, especially in tandem with Equality. He's got this as a reset button. This is Paladin's trump card whenever anything gets too hairy, which it might, depending on how Caldy chooses to use this. He can go for what looks like to be a clear here.
Yeah, so Shaman only has one Lightning Storm in this particular list. It's like a very, very fast deck. As this game drags on, eventually the Paladin is just going to outcard the Shaman deck, I feel like. But we'll see. It's Caldy's managed to draw a lot of his late game threats. You know, double Fire Elemental, one of his Azure Drakes. He's got a Violet Teacher, so.
Yeah, but the Paladin is under no threat whatsoever. He's at 30 health still, and every single time it seems like Caldy's barely managing clears. Like you said, the Shaman deck is excellent at pushing out a lot of tempo through these cheap spells and cheap cards, but you do burn through the hand very quickly. It's kind of amazing that Caldy still has a hand size because he's been able to draw these late game cards.
Yeah, I
But
think
soon he's gonna pick up cards where he's just burning through, won't have anything else.
I would probably play Violet Teacher. And, okay. I see, I'm not, I don't feel too bad hexing the Sludge Belcher, but this works too. This is a case where taking the damage from Sludge Belcher does make sense. Wants to keep Spell Power Totem alive. His life total is not a huge deal in this matchup.
Just weakening Alex Strasser, right? Don't worry. He's on it.
Double Iron Beak Owl Paladin. That's kind of cool. I mean, double Humility, double Eldor, double Iron Beak Owl is interesting. Those cards don't have great synergy, but I mean, Owl is a great card, so I suppose it's fine.
Yeah, the silence gives you a lot of flexibility too. Not just to take care of the death battles, but because you silence your own equality minions to have something relevant on the board still. Not to be completely flapped out by the 1 health on your own creature. And we've seen actually big plays in the past couple of days involving those kinds of thought processes and lines. So it's actually kind of unique to have the silences and the paladin as a core element for your board control deck. It's cool.
Yeah, Spellbreaker is not uncommon. Double Owl is cool. It's like much faster, less of less valuable as a body, obviously. I like his paladin deck though. Seems strong.
You even
I'm
squeezed a
excited to see it.
BGH in there. Wow.
Yeah, double.
It really seems like his deck cut out a lot of those 4-drops that you see, whether it is Senjin or Defender or something there. It seems like he only has Consecration and True Silver in those slots.
Paladin's actually down to 3 cards already. That's interesting. That Iron Beak Owl was just kind of a non-factor. But
Instruction begins.
we'll see if... I mean, I don't know. If the Paladin never sees any of its late game, never sees Nixia, never sees Lay on Hands. I mean, granted, that's unlikely. Oh, there's Lay on Hands. That'll be game.
Never sees late game as Tyrion has Lay on Hands.
Yeah, Tyrion, like, he has the Hex for Tyrion, so Tyrion's not a huge deal. But Lay on Hands is no way to interact with that. It's just guaranteed value against you. Freshka's a bit scared of lightning.
He's got Ysera. He's got Onyxia too. Those are all targets you'd draw on a Hex. They only have 2 of them in your deck.
Yeah, this game is not looking great for Shaman, but I don't know. Maybe Freshka really bricks on draws.
Yeah.
Gonna go ahead.
Wisely using Earthshock because he needs to keep Hex for the Tyrion. You don't want an Earthshock Tyrion because there's still a 6/6 body there that's alive.
Definitely. I guess you attack the face for 4 with the Azure Drake rather than killing a 1/1. Oh, he's gonna opt to kill 1/1.
I think the board matters too much. The 4 damage to a paladin is very inconsequential considering, like Guardian Kings might just come out this turn, and your damage was useless.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Put your faith in the light.
All right, so beyond this Hex, what else does Shaman have? There is continuity with Freshka's hand. With Lay on Hands, he can just play that and draw.
Yeah.
All right.
It's got a Defender Vargas and a Dream. That's pretty much it. I mean, you can
Build the nation of America.
Yeah, exactly. Do you trade the Harvest Golem off? Would you rather trade the Healing Totem after Defendering it? I think, yeah, I like trading and then just play Defender on Chow and Healing Totem. Although maybe Healing and Taunt, I guess. Yeah, it's a little bit more vulnerable to True Silver Champion, but better if he doesn't have True Silver Champion, so...
Well, he hasn't shown that he's had it for a while now. He's had multiple occasions to use it. Full clear opportunity for Freshka, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, call these out of cards, I would do it.
Yeah, and he's already used Manatide Totem. There's not many cards left for him to get at the moment, short of Azure Drake, to pull him back somewhat even.
Yeah, this is I mean, honestly, I don't think it matters too much. I mean, it's understandable if the Paladin wants to hold on to his equality combo. It's important to have access to that clear, but yeah, it's really not going to get much better than this. I would even play the Kodo. every turn you wait on playing Kodo, you're forfeiting a 3 damage attack. So like if he hero powers here, he's sacrificing a rock biter to have like a battle cry. Yeah, I think it's better to play Kodo.
Yeah. I don't think you're waiting to snipe things like an Unbound Elemental, which isn't even popular anymore. So I think it's just warranted that you want to. Plus, look, it's actually a liability if you waited on it.
Yeah. Alright.
Oof.
That's...
Missed a BM opportunity. Could have healed his opponent's totems.
He could have. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I didn't even see
First
that
display I've seen.
Yeah, right? I usually
Yeah.
pride myself on my BM skills, but...
Oh man, Kaldi can't do it, and the series is tied. But that's kind of what Paladin games are. They're the grinder kind of games. You're pushing your opponent out of the game slowly and answering things one by one. And we saw it from the very beginning, where it felt like, and this is a good observation made by Reynad, where it just felt like Kaldi was very early game centric. But when you have both of the consecrations drawn, not to mention both the qualities drawn, there was really nothing that the shaman could do after it ran out of gas. There's no way to rebound back in the game, especially when you cut your win conditions in the late game. So kind of academic from that point on. And now Kaldi's going to go down to his shaman and warrior again, while Freshka still has the flexibility of playing whatever deck he wants.
He does. This is, like I said, Freshko is down a game, but I think he's going to win the series just because of how his decks match up against the remaining 2 decks from Kaldi. So yeah, he didn't... Even though Zoo really performed extremely well for Kaldi, Freshka's decks overall just seem better prepared for this matchup.
Wow. All right. Well, it's tied 3-3. It's a best of 7. The winner goes on to the quarterfinals, and the loser will stop here in round 6 of Swiss. So let's jump into the game and see what Kaldi and Freshka have selected. Reynad has suggested the Rogue or the Paladin is very good, effective. And Kaldi's going to pick Warrior into Paladin, which I feel like is one of Paladin's best matchups.
Yeah, it really depends on how it's built, but yeah, I agree with you. Like Kaldi's Warrior deck is pretty anti-aggro. I mean, double Senjin, double Unstable Ghoul. It's very fast. It can interact early with decks like Zoo. But again, in a control matchup, it's going to struggle a bit more, I think. That double Stampeding Kodo is one of the reasons I think that Freshka is so favored. Card is fantastic against Warrior. Kills off a lot of the important cards like Armorsmith, Acolyte of Pain, Sludge Belching tokens.
And he's removed some of that mid-game for tech cards, which could impact the matchup dramatically too, like the second Humility to eliminate another threat, or an Ironbeak Owl, number 2, to take care of not only Karen, but also Sylvanas. So there's a lot of opportunities for Freshka to answer whatever Warrior puts out. If Kaldi can get pretty good draws off this Acolyte, which I don't think will, considering Freshka's hand, but say Freshka allows him to, there is opportunities for Warrior to control the mid game with a lot of board presence, and then baiting out a quality early, so then Paladin's uncomfortable for the rest of the game.
It's worth noting that Kaldi drew Gorehowl, Sylvanas, into Ysera all in a row, which are like 3 of his best cards. So I actually think, given what the hands look like right now, the Warrior deck actually looks in a pretty good spot, which is definitely not what we'd expect most of the time in this matchup. I think Kaldi's definitely in it in this case. Although that Kodo is going to put in some work next turn.
Yeah, especially considering Kaldi has to kind of go up against the true silver champion. He can make it exempt to the Kodo with the Cruel Taskmaster. But then he doesn't really have the coin for next turn, which looks like at the moment he only has 1 turn 5 play if he passes this at the moment.
It's really tempting to like coin the Cruel Taskmaster so you don't just get put in a world of Kodo this turn, but I don't know. Like, you really need to save that coin. If you use it now, you won't have a play for next turn unless you draw one. Brutal.
Wow.
Kodo denies the draw.
Kodo. Dang. A lot of times I like to draw parallels to Acolyte of Pain getting 1 shot to a 3-mana Loot Hoarder, but in this case it was a 3-mana nothing. Gosh. 3-mana Shield Bearer, that's what it was.
Just brutal. Lotheb's gonna prevent any coin shenanigans. No attack. Man, Kali really wants to Gorehowl, but that Lotheb's gonna stop him. Because he can't coin. Interesting. So maybe I guess you just play Sylvanas? Or no, you... Oh, this is sick. You just Taskmaster, I think. Isn't that the best play? Taskmaster your own creature, kill off his Kodo, and then he can't really run Lotheb into that, so it'll force a Consecration. Your hand is pretty clunky, though, so you definitely want to play Sylvanas this turn.
Yeah, next turn you want to drop Gorehowl, and you have a pretty good opportunity to protect it, but now the Iron Beak Owl comes out. I think if you knew the hand of Freshka, I think he would have definitely gone for the Cruel Taskmaster play, so it's right in our eyes, but it's not so obvious for Kali.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
I think the worst thing that could have happened is Consecration, which, in this case, Freshka had it. Yeah, Sylvanas is not bad, though.
He's got him twice covered here. Double Iron Beak, double Consecrate, double quality. I think Freshka is well tooled to handle any kind of board at him.
Yeah. When you're playing a control deck, it doesn't really matter, like even if it's a control mirror or against aggro, you don't really want to draw doubles of all of your cards because you tend to see like control decks have more single copies of cards than aggro. And the reason for that is the games go longer. So when the games go longer, you draw more cards. You want to have more one-ofs in your hand because it just gives you more options, you know? The second equality isn't giving him any more choices than the first equality for this turn, so, you know, he'd rather have that be like a creature, just like any other card that gives him another choice. So those all the 2-ofs there are going to make his plays a little bit less flexible in the mid-game, but yeah, this matchup just favors Paladin so much that it's probably not going to matter too much.
Yeah, it's well said, well said. And I think Gorehowl is like what you said, the win condition that's often set by the warrior, and it's really important in matchups like Shaman, and for that reason too, it's important against Paladin. I don't think Preshka runs Harrison Jones in his deck, though. He certainly had to cut something like that for the kind of deck that he brought here.
Yeah, no one's actually playing Harrison. It's kind of interesting. In any of the decks. It's a card you see in Warrior, I think, more than any other class.
Yeah, I know that E-Cop really likes running his Paladin, and as a result, the rest of Cloud9 ends up using Harrison Jones, and then even Savitz. So there are Paladins using it, but surely Freshka had to cut something for like Onyxia and then double Humility, double Iron Beak Owl.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of Onyxia, though, because it's not Ragnaros. So that's, I mean, it's a very consistent card. Like, you know what you're getting when you play an Onyxia.
Yeah, 17 out of 17 value. Not bad.
Good out of...
or 14, excuse me. But
yeah, it's good against Ragnaros, too, which is kind of cool. Well, sometimes.
It could be. Depends who you're playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this is an opportunity for Kali to pretty commandingly seize the board.
Yeah, you just run your face into Lotheb. I mean, it's a lot of damage, but who cares? It's a double Iron Beak Owl, double Humility Paladin deck. Like, it's not going to punish you for taking damage.
And you know your opponent's deck list, too. So, this is where you use your opponent's information against them, where you can get away with a lot more. That normally you have to be a little more cautious. Not that Paladin is a bursty deck, but if you use this example and juxtapose it against other matchups where you know you can get away because they're not running, like Leroy, for example. If you, without that knowledge, usually you're a little bit more cautious about your health against Road.
It's so interesting that they can play any deck 3 times, even if it loses in a best of 7. So if you have a deck that your opponent can't beat, like, even if they beat it 1 game and they get lucky, you're going to get like 2 wins out of it, which is half the wins you need to win the series. You could theoretically, like, yeah, you don't even need a 3rd deck for the series. That's so interesting.
Assuming you win every single time, but if it goes to the 7th game, you might need the 3rd deck.
You don't even need to
Originally, I thought it was going to be 4 decks and 2 play, like the same way they did in round of 64. Yeah. But if you want to expand it, you'd play a 4th deck. But it seems like they wanted to try to get more like expertise in. You know, you really know your 3 decks.
Yeah. It's interesting. So he wants to save the 5th charge on Gorehowl, which is a good play because it's going to allow him to kill cards like Sludge Belcher, Stampeding Kodo. 5 health is very common right now. He does have the Taskmaster in hand, so I wouldn't fault him for attacking Iron Beak Owl that turn, though. I don't think he's played an Unstable Ghoul yet. That could definitely help him. Ooh. Clear out the board.
Another weapon isn't the most helpful right now.
Yeah, not too bad. I think you just attack Belcher, go ahead and, shield block, armor, Taskmaster, Laughing Sister. And then your opponent has pretty much no board. You're healthy on your life total. You have a Laughing Sister and a... Okay, he's going to choose to use the Black Knight rather than save it for a Tyrion. I suppose that's fine.
I think he needs something pretty strong on board while swinging it. But I think you could have accomplished the same thing. Like, you're only taking 2 more damage by using Gorehowl. And are you really afraid of 2 more damage for a Paladin? Maybe he is, but I like saving Tyrion because now your answer to a Tyrion becomes a little more complicated.
Yeah, this does put him further ahead on board this turn, though. Maybe that ends up paying off in the long run. Oh.
Well, now this is interesting. Kill off your opponent's board. He just used his best way to one-shot the Tyrion, unless he has the ability to pop with Execute or Shield Slam, which, even then Execute's really clunky because you don't have the ability to get through it. You need 2 things to hit Tyrion for that.
Yeah, so... Okay, Faceless helps.
Wow.
Quite a bit, actually.
That's actually really good.
I think you attack face and then play Dustbite. So otherwise you're... I guess. You're like committing to never playing a weapon again if you're not playing Dustbite this turn.
I suppose. I guess this is just a Light's Justice now. It's just like a 1/4, not a 4/1.
Yeah, exactly. Light's Justice is underrated, so I like that card.
Hell yeah, Captain Greenskin. Put it in your mid-range Pally deck and put it on Tempo Storm's website. There you go.
Let's see.
Alright, well, this is what he's waited for. The Faces brings him back. And unfortunately, he can't have an easy way of removal, though. Wow, this is awkward. Oh man, that totally sucks. Gosh.
If only there were some sort of... This is so brutal.
Oh man.
If only there was some sort of green swamp-dwelling Disney character that could describe what this Tyrion is going to do to Kaldi. This is just so gross. Oh man, Onyxia.
Wow. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Easy removal. Play Onyxia.
Needs to draw exactly Brawl.
I don't even know what Onyxia's battle cry is like in terms of what she says, because I had never even played her before. I'm pretty sure she just makes a bunch of whelps scream. What does she say when you attack with her? I don't know. I'm giving Amaz all his Jeoparino questions next round.
I don't know if anyone knows, man. I feel like when that card comes down, people just push the concede button.
Not even the voice actor who did Onyxia knows. Just like, I didn't know. Just did like a 500 of those in one day. Just kind of forgot. Well, looks like Kaldi's dead. Let's see a way for him to
challenge the daughter of Deathwing. That's what.
Oh, you can Deathbite execute. Oh, that's cool. But wow, use 3 weapons this turn. What the hell? Yeah. Oh my god. Oh.
Got him.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures.
Oh man, he had such a good hand too, but he didn't honestly, Kaldi misplayed this game. He used his Black Knight when he had no other answer to Tyrion, and he ended up losing because of it, I think. If he ended up making the play where he just Gorehowls the Sludge Belcher instead, I honestly think Kaldi would have won this game. Well, not necessarily would have won, it would have gone on for a long time because of this land hand, but yeah, he would have been in
I know
it.
what you mean. Much more relevant than top decking Unstable Ghoul. Not even top decking, it's just drawing. Well, it looks like his tournament run ends here, Reynad. Unless there's one other card, but we see his deck list here. I was thinking unless he has Deathwing or something dramatic like that. But I don't know if he watches all your videos.
Oh, well played by Fresh Guy. I definitely like his decks for this kind of format. I feel like they're very, very strong. And yeah, cool set to watch in this kind of new format that Prismata Cup's trying out.
All right. Well, also props to Kaldi. It goes without saying that getting this far in the tournament is still very impressive. Just look at the field of 64. You have the best players in the world from ladder, from tournaments, from just results, and just getting to the top 12 is an accomplishment in itself. So, congrats to Kaldi for getting here. But his tournament will end right now, as Freshka will move on directly to the quarterfinals. Our next match queued up will be Dog versus Naria, two players that I'm actually very fond of recently based off watching their play. Dog came within one game of qualifying for top 16 in New York for the BlizzCon qualifiers. And of course, Naria is already there because he's ranked, I believe, #1 in Europe. So it should be a really good match.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. He did touch on it a bit, but yeah, Prismata Cup, even though it's not like the most well-known tournament, I think actually has the strongest field of any tournament outside of BlizzCon. It really is just entirely merit-based, the invites, and yeah, a bunch of great players competing. It's cool to see that familiar faces are making it so far into the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good mix of players in my opinion. And Kaldi had good results in the past, qualifying for BYOC in DreamHack, and also doing well in some other tournaments. So shout out to him and the rest of the VVV guys. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more here from Prismatic Cup #2 with Frodan and Reynad. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be back in just a sec. Welcome back, guys. That was a quick ad once again for Prismata, the beta, which is free to sign up at prismata.net/beta, where you enter the coupon code PJSALT and get free access to Prismata. And you can check it out. You saw a little ad. Find out more information and support the sponsors of the event. Let's take a look at the bracket to see an update on what's happening in the quarterfinals. We're past our final round of Swiss. So, Reynad, run us down.
All right, so it looks like Freshka just went ahead and advanced into the quarterfinals. He's going to be playing against Faramir. Let's see. So Kalento and Silent are... Is that... I'm sorry, we're getting into the dog match. Dog Naria. Okay. So we're in the quarterfinals already, right? Is that what's going on?
Yes, we just finished round of 6. The round of 12, which is the 6th round of Swiss. Excuse me. Faramir defeated Trump, I believe, so he'll be playing Freshka, and then Dog and Nyria won their respective matches, and then of course Semiju will await the loser of Kalento and Silent Storm.
Okay, awesome. So we are gonna get into the Dog versus Nyria match. They're playing for a spot in the semifinals. Winner of that match is gonna play the winner of Semiju versus the loser of Kalento versus Silent. Okay, so We're gonna be watching like one quarterfinals game, this one versus Dog, this one with Dog
Yep.
versus Nyria, and then straight to semifinals, or are we gonna see all of the quarterfinals games?
No, we're gonna see this match, and then we go into the semis, the two semis, and then the grand final. So we have four series
Okay,
left
cool.
for today. You're stuck with me
Awesome.
for quite some time. You can't go anywhere.
These are all players I recognize, except for Silent. Clearly a great player to make it this far. In this kind of field. I'm excited to see the games. Should be fun.
Yeah, all right, cool. So let's jump into the selection screen and see what these guys have brought. I'm almost positive Dark's bringing another variant of that Leroy-less Miracle Rogue because he dominated me on ladder with it. Like he 30 comboed me OTK. And I remember that vividly amidst my ladder bench today. So he is bringing Rogue, and as well as Druid and Paladin. Now, Nyria, I don't know how much you got to watch the VGVN right now, because I know you've been playing a lot and haven't had the opportunity to study VODs. But this
He
guy is definitely the hot topic with his play recently.
he made the Leroy play against Hyped, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
yeah, I saw that game.
Backstabbing.
Yeah, I was impressed when I watched him play. I think yeah. I think I watched a couple games. I didn't see a single misplay, which is like extremely rare for somebody to not misplay in 2 games in a row. I think even pros, I think anybody to have a perfect game where you don't make a mistake, it happens like 10% of the time. Even a small mistake, like positioning or something. So yeah, clearly a very good player. I'm excited to see the games. Looks like they both brought Druid, Priest, Warlock for Nyria. I'm gonna assume that's Handlock. Maybe it's Zoo, and Paladin, Druid, Rogue for Dog. So it looks like, depending on what kind of list of Druid that is, and depending on what kind of list of Warlock that is, Nyria might not have a great answer to Miracle Rogue. But if that is Handlock, then he's got that going for him. If that's the Wild Growth Yeti version of Druid, that's not really ramp, but not really the more aggressive Strife Grow one. That deck could also definitely beat Rogue. So I guess we'll just go ahead and see what kind of list they're playing. These players do know each other's decks, I think. So
Yep. They're given the deck lists before the match starts, so they have full information. Which, if I have to make a guess, I would say Neria's bringing Ramp Druid. He's not playing aggressive. He's also playing Handlock, and he's playing the Control Priest. This is what I'm just guessing, solely based off of his MO, and that might be a perfect reason to not do it. But now that information is fully out there, I feel like you don't need to try to surprise your opponent based off your own history. Like
what
the whole
is
should I play Zoo, should I play Handlock thing.
do you happen to know which team Neri is on?
Yeah,
Um,
he's on Team Innovation at the moment.
okay. I think those are the guys that play the Wild Growth Yeti Druid deck, aren't they? Like the kind of the older, like the Druid deck that was more popular around the time of DreamHack Summer, where you pray, you draw Wild Growth, and you play a bunch of 5 drops like Spectral Knight, that kind of thing. Used to be Azure Drake. I might be wrong about that though. Maybe he's bringing more of
I
a
think
standard rank
maybe
deck.
they did, but now they're bringing more of the zombie chow, which maybe the one zombie chow, but you scale late game anyways with scenarios and double ancients of everything. So I think it's standard list for the most part, and you also play one combo most likely. And of course, Dog is a player who's been using a lot of his ramp deck as well, popularizing on stream and people copying it. So in fact, his list is probably the most copied ramp druid across everybody. I've seen Firebat use it. I've seen several other people. So let's go into
Yeah,
game. I think the game over one's ready. Let's see what these guys have chosen here.
yeah, he plays more of the Senjin with one copy of Force combo list.
Your soul shall be
All right,
mine.
Okay.
Handlock versus Paladin. So the Paladin gets a slight nod here, but I still like Handlock against
You think
Paladin,
Paladin gets a
generally
slight-
speaking.
I'm a big Handlock fanboy. I think Handlock is always favored against everyone if it's played right. Neri decided to keep Hellfire here. This is, I don't know. Anytime I watch somebody play Handlock, I disagree with the play like every turn, but I'm very picky with this particular deck. He kept Hellfire, maybe in case Dog is playing more aggressive Paladin. That card's going to be important, but I've pretty much only seen Control ever. So I don't love Hellfire against that, but it does give you a way to deal with Acolyte of Pain, Eldor Peacekeepers, that kind of thing that could otherwise be pretty annoying. I'm a fan of just mulling for a bunch of big guys, though. Try to go 4-drop into 4-drop and kill the paladin quickly. You know, force them to have peacekeepers, force them to have equalities, force them to have humilities. Because if they
Yeah.
don't, if you just have one more threat than they have answer for, they lose the game. Spellbreaker's a
Yeah.
great draw.
Absolutely. The game can escalate very quickly, despite the fact that it has all the tools to go pretty deep into both decks. And the Spellbreaker, like you said, is really important because now he's a way to answer both the Giants and the Twilight Drakes efficiently without having to bleed into the other. It always, when you have to use like a Peacekeeper on a Twilight Drake versus silencing it, you had the better option here now.
Defender. Double Defender and Jiraxis. If you're going to play Jiraxis, I guess you have to play Double Defender. Because you want to make sure you have a taunt for the turn after you play Jiraxis. It makes your hero power much, much stronger. Jiraxis has gotten a lot more popular. This tournament has banned Starving Buzzard, so you're not really seeing a lot of Hunter. Even though I feel like it still would have caught a lot of people off guard. But anyway, because of the lack of Hunter and the lack of more aggressive Druids, a card like Jiraxis gets a lot better because there's just a lot less burst. Also less Leroy, so it's a lot safer to play a card like that. You have time to more often.
Shields up.
By the way, do you like double Hellfire one Shadow Flame as
No.
your flavor of AoE? Do you like
Especially
going
not
two
this
Shadow
meta
Flame?
game. Hellfire's only better against Zoo and Shaman. Maybe he's expecting a lot of Shaman, but Shadow Flame is just too important in the mid-range mirrors and the literal mirror match. So like, if you play Handlock versus Handlock, Shadow Flame is very important. If you play against Priest,
yeah.
Shadow Flame is one of your best cards. Against Paladin, Shadow Flame is fantastic. Like in this case, Dog played a Zombie Chow in a metagame without Hunter, and that made Nyria's Hellfire
I got
look
this.
good. But okay, this is like this too. I don't understand. You should be going face here. I guess his deck doesn't have Leroy though. This is gonna make the advantage of killing the 1/1s. It does make the Spellbreaker a lot worse. But Dog does have the Coin Consecration. I mean, these players have played this matchup a lot. They know exactly what they're doing. They're making decisions very quickly.
Dog's
Dog
a
has-
notorious quick player, though. Like, he is a very, like, when you watch his stream or anything, the guy just spams pretty much.
Yeah, Dog doesn't care about dropping Nyria low in this case because Dog has double equality in his hand, so he has the answer for immediate Molten Giants. There's no reason for him to play defensively around them. So turn 8's got a huge board. Dog's going to clear it out this turn, and then Nyria's going to follow that up with Jiraxis and hope that just ends the game. Yeah, what sucks about equality here... Okay, I think this is a mistake. You should have equality'd first and then played Pyro Holy Light, I think. Because that would let him keep his Pyromancer in play. And I don't think that Holy Light is going to be going anywhere other than his face anyway.
Yeah, assuming your opponent plays like Alex Straza, then that's the only time
Wow.
you might hold it, but not how
Look at
common
this.
is that?
Why is Jiraxis in your deck if you're not going to play it on a board with 1 power? That blows my
Has
mind.
no respect. No
There's
respect,
no
man.
better situation. Like, you're not going to die immediately. You get to start churning out hero powers the rest of the game. You've already played 1 Molten Giant, so there's only 1 left in your deck. Alright.
I don't know if he's baiting something or I don't understand either. But it seemed like a really logical play. You heal back up to 5 or 15 rather, and the Molten Giants one's already been played. You're often worried about having Molten Giants in hand and playing Jiraxis because the cost ends up skyrocketing again. But in that case, he doesn't have any signs of it. Maybe he felt like his hand was too small to make Jiraxis effective, though. Do you think so? Because I mean, he life tapped immediately.
I don't know. I mean, when you play Jiraxis, you're drawing a 6/6 every turn for 2 mana. That kind of makes up for any card disadvantage most of the time. He had taunts for the 6/6s. Like, I don't think there's anything that could have gone wrong. He even had Lotheb to mess with the equality follow-up. So he could have gone like Lotheb, make a 6/6 defender up. Let's see. So yeah, Dog kind of, I wouldn't say like threw away Pyromancer, but he chose to lose it in order to keep the Holy Light in his hand. We'll see if that ends up paying off, because it gives him the option to Holy Light a creature rather than being forced to use it on his face. And I guess the Pyromancer wouldn't have been doing too much Maybe it would have cleared the board, I guess, but
Yeah, not to mention it's vulnerable to like Mortal Coil, give your opponent ability to draw.
that's true.
But you don't know if that's exactly what's going through his mindset. Dog also painfully drops Sylvanas here. He really thought about maybe dropping Ysera, but of course he doesn't want it to get Siphon Sold immediately and dealt with. Oh,
Oh,
second.
no.
Okay, well, there's a reason to play Jiraxis now. I mean,
I really hope he
Here it
does. I'm
is.
just gonna be so sad. Like, why is this card
I
in your
think
deck
so.
if you're not gonna? And see, like now he doesn't want a Soulfire. He needs both those other cards. They're too important. But he has to Soulfire or he's dead. So it's like just a really awkward spot to be in, honestly.
There's 11 damage from the Paladin, right, with the True Silver Champion. So I don't think he's actually dead right now on board. Ooh, loses Defender. That's not good. At least he still has the Siphon Soul, though, to answer the Ysera.
Yeah, it's so awkward for Dog to answer this Mold Giant right now. Like he has to run his True Silver into it if he wants to answer it that way, which is way too inefficient. I think he's just gonna let it live. That's probably the best play. It does have a lot of healing, but Molten Giant does not attack
Ugh.
small amounts of damage.
Oh, he gets the Laughing Sister.
It's always
That's
left.
not good.
And the Siphon. Oh, jeez.
Well, Jirax is looking like it'll close out unless Dog can draw a Pyro to equalize the board.
Ooh.
Wow. Well, Tyrion's nice.
Nyria could not look more excited. We have, let's see. Tyrion's not a bad draw, right? He's not dead.
He's excited about something. I think that's the most emotional. Oh, he drew
Oh.
Black Knight. Oh my god. Well, this has gotten way out of
Is
hand.
that good, Frodan? Why is that good? I can't tell.
That is an excellent draw.
Oh man. So he needs.
Whoa.
I don't think there's any card that wins anymore, right? Because he needs to draw a taunt and he needs to draw a card that works with equality.
And heal up. Or something. But Dog can't do anything from this position. The Wild Pyromancer is not enough mana to do it. And he is out of options. So, game one will go to Nerea. And a little taunt to end the game. I like it. Nice, flavorful BM. Keep in mind that this is not the end of Dog playing Paladin, nor is Nyria playing Handlock. And you know what? You were saying that you like Handlock because if you play it correctly, it seems like you can win almost any matchup. So a nice
except-
demonstration, Nyria.
Yeah, if there's not a lot of Hunter or Shaman, the deck is just favored against anything, even double big game Hunter decks. It's just way too good. And Shaman's still not that popular. Even with the lack of Hunter, because of the Starving Buzzard ban in this tournament, you're still going to see a lot of Rogue, which Shaman doesn't really want to play against. You're still going to see a lot of more late game oriented decks, Priest, Paladin, Warrior. Like a lot of those decks, well, not Warrior, but Priest and Paladin are actually favored against Shaman as well. Shaman's just in this awkward spot where it's almost never the best deck. It's never like oppressively good or doing anything broken. It's just very fair, and you hope that you draw the right answers in the right order. So because of that, you're not going to see a lot of Shaman. Because you're not going to see a lot of Shaman or Hunter, Handlock should be one of the best, if not the best deck for this tournament.
Well, and then everyone's going to start putting BGHs, and that's where the slide in of Zoo, right, to kind of catch people off guard because of all the deck preparations. And that's what we saw
Exactly.
last series, interestingly enough. So the wheel of counters continue. Let's go and let's go to the selection screen and see what's else available to these guys because memory is slipping us for a brief second to show what these guys have available to them. Now that you've seen Handlock and got confirmation from it, but we've suspected that already, should Dog change his game plan at all, or do you feel like the series of draws were just not in his favor that game?
I'll just play Handlock 3 times in a row, and then because it's good against all 3 of your opponent's decks, right? So why risk picking into a bad matchup when you can just play Handlock a bunch? If I would even tell Dog that I'm going to pick Handlock, what's he going to do about it? Like he's going to pick one of his 3 decks that aren't favored against it, unless that's some crazy double big game Hunter Druid.
Oh my god.
Which is still not favored against it in my opinion.
It's like Babe Ruth porting to the rafters. That's mean.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that.
Exactly. Like he can play this Warlock deck for 3 games, win or lose. If he wins 2 of them, then at that point maybe he knocks one of Dog's decks out completely, and then he has more information about what to pick later on. But yeah, I feel like you should go with the deck that's just favored against all 3 rather than risking a bad matchup.
Well, I was more. I mean, when I asked this question, I was asking should Dog choose Paladin again and just go at it,
Oh,
or anything else. But you answered it from the opposite perspective, which I think is good because I think Paladin also on paper is pretty decent against the rest of the field of whatever Naria has too. Assuming the percentages do play out the way they normally do, with Paladin having the slight edge over Handlock, being good against Priest, and even being good against Ram Druid, honestly. So Dog feels comfortable, but losing that first game really hurt him because this Paladin needs to do heavy lifting.
yeah, I mean, he could also pick Druid. Even with just one big game hunter, it might be favored against Nyria's deck because Nyria's playing like double Hellfire, double Defender. Like these are cards that don't do anything against Druid because they're not Shadow Flame or anything like that. Nyria does have Black Knight though, which is it's probably just his best card against Ramp Druid. So
All right,
we'll
let's
see
go
what
into
Dana Biel has.
game, yeah, and see what happens in game number 2. And keep in mind that Dog can choose whatever he wants. So can Nyria, but Nyria has no incentive to switch. It looks like, as we see a rogue pick from Dog.
And Dog doesn't look happy about this. This is not the matchup he wanted to see. He overthought it. I don't know. And I like Neria's decision to play Handlock, clearly. Yeah, Watcher Owl is so interesting because, like, when you have it going second, I pretty much keep it in every single matchup. But I'm not... Like, with his version of the deck, he doesn't play Leroy. So I don't know if that's actually correct. Because even though he would get a lot of this early game damage, since he doesn't have Leroy or Power Overwhelming in his deck, he can't really capitalize on all that early damage very well. He can get his opponent
Yeah,
down
it's
to
still
like 12.
board
but-
centric.
Yeah, exactly. If you're Dog, you just want to mulligan for Auctioneer and hope that you draw a lot of preparations. That's pretty much how you beat Handlock as the rogue.
Well,